So last month I made a video on vampires, so this month I figured it was about time to talk about their lunar cousins, werewolves, or more generally, lycanthropes. While werewolves might not be as popular as vampires might be, there's still a lot of games that do allow you to be werewolves. Generally, this is shown as your character's strongest form, a temporary boost where you change shape and go full beast. In film fiction and literature, werewolves are generally shown to be these creatures who, by day, they're normal humans, but during a full moon, they go right into their bestial urges and go crazy and lose all self-control. You might think that playing any of the lycanthropes is as difficult, if not harder to play than a vampire, but that's just simply not the case. In fact, in many ways, it's much easier to be a lycanthrope over a vampire. Were creatures definitely have some difficulties when it comes to trying to play them, but there's nothing stopping you from getting the curse and having a good time. And a reminder, if you want to support this channel, the best thing you can do is hit that subscribe button. Now, on with the video. Firstly, how does a player become cursed with lycanthropy? Well, it's actually pretty easy. First, you must get into combat with a lycanthrope, and they must attack you. You then must roll a save, and if you fail, you are now cursed. There's no rule about how long this takes into effect. It just says that if you fail the save, you become cursed. So, in theory, if you fail the save, and it's a full moon, you're going to immediately turn into the were creature that you were attacked by. Of course, a DM is probably going to wait until this transformation happens during a long rest or off session where they have more time to put together how it all works. However, if they are doing it instantaneously, that could actually make for a really fun encounter where you have a bunch of weak commoner characters who are fighting alongside the heroes, and as they get attacked by the lycanthropes, they're going to also turn into these creatures and fight the party. Something worth noting is that only humanoids can be cursed, which means that for most players it's not going to matter, but there are a select amount of playable races who are not humanoids, which means that they cannot be cursed with lycanthropy. This includes fays, centaurs, changelings, and satyrs, which, really makes sense for a lot of them why they wouldn't be able to turn into a beast form. Now that you are cursed, what happens to you? Well, the first thing that happens is that you need to decide whether or not you're going to embrace this curse or resist it. This is going to affect the type of werewolf you are, and the decision is totally up to you as there is no roll required to resist. If you resist the curse, you remain in your humanoid form, totally normal, but when a full moon comes out, you become full beast mode and you lose total control of your character. This could potentially mean that the party are going to have to keep you locked up during full moons, or the party might have to kill you if you go full beast mode in a crowded city. A person who embraces their curse is able to shapeshift at will whenever they want. However, it comes at a cost. And that cost is that your character will now have the alignment of the creature that they were bitten by, which is most likely going to be an evil alignment. And when your alignment changes, the DM is allowed to take control of your character until the curse is able to be lifted. This essentially blocks you out of using that character until the curse can be removed. Now, how do you remove the curse? Well, it's as simple as using the spell Remove Curse, which, quite frankly, is a bit of a problem that I have with D&D, which is just the fact that there's a lot of cool effects that can be resolved with just a simple spell slot. You're not going to have any of these unique rituals that you have to do or difficult quests. Your DM could decide to create one, but the way the rules are written, a lot of these things like lycanthropy, it's more of a burden until you can get your cleric to cast the spell or to find a cleric willing to cast the spell versus an actual problem that you have to deal with long term. Like if I wanted to make a character and their journey is supposed to be about them curing themselves of lycanthropy, well, once we hit a certain level, it's gonna just be dealt with in a very anticlimactic way because that's how the rules are. Anyways, I want to go back to that alignment thing, because technically you can kind of bend the rules with that. Although there's technically a loophole in the rules when it comes to lycanthropy and your alignment change. So your DM might not allow this, and it requires you to be aware of what were-creature you're going to come across and build your alignment on that. But technically it works. Not all were-creatures are evil. Were-bears are good, and were-tigers are neutral. In theory, if you made your character of the alignment of either of these creatures, and then you got turned into a lycanthrope of that creature, well, your alignment hasn't changed, even if you embrace the curse. Which means that your DM technically doesn't have any reason to take your character away. Now, that would require a whole bunch of puzzle pieces fitting together perfectly, and with werebears being good and were-tigers being neutral, it's unlikely that you are going to end up fighting these creatures. However, it is a loophole that I figured I should make you aware of. However, in the most likely case where you aren't able to take advantage of this loophole and you get cursed with lycanthropy, that means you have to resist the curse, which also means you can't really do anything with it. Because the main benefits of the curse that you get come from when you change forms, and you can only change forms when it's a full moon, and that's when you lose complete control of your character. Well, you never are going to get an opportunity to use this. Like, I know it's a curse, however, it could be fun to tear stuff out. If you are cursed and resist it, there is one thing you get to take advantage of. You get a boost to your character's strength and dex if your character already has a lower stat. Your boost is based off of which creature you have turned into. Now, some of these bonuses are pretty nice, so if you wanted to take advantage of this, and it would be metagaming, but if you knew what type of were-creatures you would be coming up against, you could purposely have that stat be low and then try to get cursed by that creature, and then you'll get a boost in that stat without having to put any points into it. However, again, in the real world, you aren't really going to get the opportunity to do that. And if you do have the opportunity, that likely means that you are pretty significantly cheating, and I can't really condone that. So, I mean, if your DM is throwing you a bone and telling you what's going to come up, then that's probably fine. But if you're like reading ahead in the book to see if a certain monster appears, don't do that. If that's what you're going for, what you should really be doing is just asking your DM if your character can start with this curse, and then you can talk about which creatures you're allowed to be cursed by. You also have to remember the fact that if you make a strength build and your strength is built on the fact that you have been affected by a werebear and have a 19 strength, well, if that curse ever gets removed, your strength is going to be whatever it should have been. So if you made your strength an 8 so you can put your points somewhere else, well, now you're a strength-based build with no strength. So there's a lot of ways that can go wrong, and it's really just better not to risk it. The unfortunate fact about lycanthropy is that if you want to take full advantage of strength and make yourself really low strength, well, you can lose all that strength and potentially never get it back. And instead, if you decide to make your character to have no focus on strength, and then you get that really high strength, well, you're not taking advantage of it because it's not something you built your character around. Now, for all the other things you get as a lycanthrope, you get the attacks and abilities of the creature you were bitten by, plus extra bonuses, and sometimes even a bonus to armor class. Unfortunately, like I said, you're never really gonna get to take advantage of these because these are only in hybrid or beast form, which you only ever get to use if you aren't resisting the urge and therefore are evil, or you're resisting the urge and it only shows up on a full moon, again when your character gets taken away. Maybe if you're playing in an evil campaign, these things will be allowed to be taken into account, but for most people, I suspect that you really never get to use these the way you may want to use them. Which, by the way, these can be fun ways to play a werewolf. Resisting the urge and it only coming out on full moon, that's a fun, like, regular horror trope. a person who has this curse inside of them that they're trying to cure themselves of, and they have to keep track of the moon phases, and then when it's going to be a full moon, they have to mysteriously disappear deep into the woods, or they have to chain themselves up to prevent themselves from hurting anyone. In the same way, if you decide not to resist it and you go full evil, well, that's just a regular bad guy werewolf. And it makes sense that someone giving in to their most primal evil urges can't really follow alongside a good guy campaign anymore. But these are only two ways that you might want to interact with that werewolf trope. Maybe instead you want to have your character view it as some sort of gift, something that they can take advantage of. Not in an evil way, more of like in a superpower way. A temporary transformation that makes you more powerful than you could ever be before, something like the werewolves that you see in Skyrim. There's also the fact that you're relying on your DM of approving of you starting as a lycanthrope, or of putting them into your game and then happening to fail the save when you get attacked by one. Maybe you want a more guaranteed way to be the Wolfman. Well, there are some options. Normally, I avoid putting anything into my videos that isn't published directly by Wizards of the Coast. This is because I know from my videos that if I'm suggesting something someone should do, that even if there's a better idea in a third-party sourcebook, that the DM might not necessarily approve of using that sourcebook. Generally, DMs allow for any sourcebook that was Wizards of the Coast published to be used in their games, so when I recommend things from those, I can be generally safe that I know that my ideas are going to apply to the majority of my audience. Today I'm making an exception because this is content that is actually officially on D&D Beyond, so I figure that most DMs are going to approve of it, which is why we're going to talk about Critical Role's Bloodhunter subclass, Order of the Lycan. If you choose this subclass, you're choosing to be part of an order which is assumedly going to have to be part of your backstory and exist within the world. In a very similar way to the companions of Skyrim, those within the order view the curse of lycanthropy as an honor, something they should be proud of. Choosing this subclass allows you to turn into your hybrid form for an hour. During that time, you get damage resistances, advantages on strength checks and saving throws, bonuses to your melee damage, but most importantly, you get bloodlust, an actual drawback of a subclass, which is something you don't rarely see. A bloodlust means that when you are low on health, you have to make a roll, and if you fail, you have to attack the closest creature to you, which could be one of your allies. Now, this option has the problem that most subclasses have in D&D, which is the fact that you don't get this until 3rd level, which means that for the first 2 levels, you're just LARPing as a guy who wants to be a werewolf, and then at the 3rd level, you finally get to be one. Now, if you want to play purely based on what's been published by Wizards of the Coast, your other option is the Barbarian subclass Path of the Beast. This doesn't give you a new transformation, but rather turns your rages into transformation. Every time you rage, you become a beast. With this, you get to choose what your natural weapon is going to be. It can either be a bite attack, a claw attack, or a tail attack. At later levels, you get to choose bonuses to your climbing, or your swimming, or your jumping. Now, the cons of choosing this subclass is, again, you don't get this till 3rd level. So you're just a regular barbarian until one long rest, and suddenly you're a werewolf. Which is particularly weird because unlike the order thing where you have to be inducted into an order, with this, being a beast is directly connected to your bloodline, or at least those are the options the game gives you on why you became Path of the Beast. I know in older D&D editions, it used to take a week to level up of training, and honestly, I think that's probably a lot better of an idea. It makes more sense that after an adventure you take a week, and during that week you get inducted into an order, or you find out about your blood connection to this curse. The other con is that you're unable to cure yourself of the curse. Although the Order of the Lycan doesn't give you any rules on what happens if you get cured, there is a direct reference to being cured, so it's assumedly possible to happen. If you want to play a character that's fighting against the curse, looking for a cure to the curse, well, you're probably just better off playing a regular lycanthrope. Thank you for watching this video. Again, if you want to support this channel, the best thing you can do is clicking that subscribe button. Thank you again, and this is the end of the video.